to go out on their own if it wasn't for an accessible community. My name is Anthony Liu, and over the past 2 years, I've come to realize just how important accessibility is in our community. In the fall of 2009, on September 30th, my life changed forever. I was working as an apprentice mechanic, having a great day at work learning the trade. On the agenda that afternoon was to take some old scrap cars down to a local recycling plant. When we arrived at our destination, I was sitting in the driver's seat of one of the vehicles. As it happened, I ended up steering one of the vehicles onto the weigh scale. I was pushed up onto the weigh scale by a bobcat machine, and he then exited so I could get the weight of the car. The green light came on, indicating that my weight was taken and it was time for me to exit the scale. The bobcat proceeded back onto the scale and gave me a gentle nudge so I could get off and go park the car off to the left. As I was exiting the scale, I turned the wheel to the left as there was a spot open for me to park the car. All of a sudden, before I even had a chance to react, the magnet of the 20-ton crane came swinging around and down, slicing through the passenger side of the roof of the Buick that I was still sitting in. He then proceeded to pick me up about 15 feet in the air. At this point, the bobcat operator had jumped out and yelled, "There's somebody still in the vehicle." I don't know what happened, but I guess the crane operator panicked. He dropped me from about 15 feet up, crashing back down to the ground. I was surrounded by twisted metal and glass. The lumbar supports of the driver's seat squeezed me like a giant bear hug. When a fellow co-worker and boss managed to get the door open, all you could see in the car was a little bubble. My angels were definitely with me that day. My friend Kyle, who was initially supposed to go first onto the scale, was now holding my hand. He asked me, "Dude, are you all right? Can you feel everything?" I moved my hands, and I could feel the pain in my core, but I tried moving my legs and nothing. I reached down, I slapped my leg, and it flopped over to the other side. I said to him, "I can't feel my legs." At that instant, his eyes glossed over as he was about to cry, but he kept it together for me. As I was cut out of the car by the jaws of life, they informed me that my injuries were too severe to transport me in an ambulance. I was airlifted to Sunnybrook Hospital with 2 fractured vertebrae in my neck, several fractured ribs, a minor fracture in my neck, and the biggest blow of all, I lost the use of my legs. Prior to my accident, I was a person that was always on the move, and my independence was very important to me, as it is to many of us. After the accident, my life was very different. It was difficult for me to adjust to all these new things and having to ask for help to do almost everything that I did. I was frustrated and just wanted to be able to go out on my own, get dressed on my own, and get back to the way things used to be. Perhaps the most liberating moment for me in the past 2 years is when I drove away from my mom, leaving her in the rearview mirror standing on her driveway. Knowing that because my vehicle was made accessible with hand controls for myself gave me confidence and satisfaction knowing that I was able to go out on my own without inconveniencing anybody else. That is, until I pulled up to the gas station and pressed the button for some help. The attendant then told me that they do not do full serve on weekends. I was driving an old Mustang, the doors were too wide for me to open at the pump and jump out, and even then it still would have taken me about 10 minutes just to pump my gas. To make things even better, I could not get into the gas station. The next full-serve gas station was far enough away that I wouldn't make it. This is when I now pick up my phone and call somebody to help me pump my gas. What if my friends or family were not around? Should I have to ask a stranger to pump my gas? I don't think so. Thankfully, this issue has been addressed, and in the future I hope to see several more full pumps in the Durham region. Like elevators, these pumps should not be abused by able-bodied people, for the main reason that you guys are able to do these things stress-free, not to mention that taking the long way around keeps you guys healthy and active. Even though I was able to get behind the wheel again and regain some of my freedom, there were still several obstacles out in the community that made getting around a bit difficult. With that being said, I myself get around all right, but that is because of the amazing support system I have behind me. But for somebody with less mobility or a lack of support behind them, getting around would definitely become a daunting task, more so than a regular trip to the grocery store or even a day out of the house. Housing was another huge issue for me. When I was released from rehab, due to the location and structure of my house, I was not able to move back home with my family, but forced out of Pickering and all the way to Whitby due to the lack of accessible housing in Pickering. This put a strain on my family, my friends, and myself. I read on one of the Durham websites that there are 1.85 million Ontarians who have some form of disability, which means that's 1 in 7 people. During the next 20 years, this number will increase to 1 in 5 due to an aging population. Currently, in the region of Durham, we estimate that there are 70,000 people with some form of disability. Now, I think that if there's a 2 to 3 year wait list for accessible housing in Durham, and people are getting older every year, we simply won't have enough housing to support our growing disabled population. From first-hand experience, I can tell you what it's like to be displaced in a town you don't know and no way of getting around on your own. Things can become very disheartening very fast. There is a truth to the saying that 4 walls will do something to a man. And I believe that this is why it's so important for people with disabilities and just people in general to get out and to be able to enjoy their community barrier-free. Whether it be physically, mentally, racially, or culturally, a barrier-free community makes life a lot more pleasant for everybody. Being in a chair has opened my eyes to the world of disabilities. If you were to sit down and read what a disability is and all the different forms, you start thinking to yourself, and it really is scary. Most times, it's not just one disability, but a combination of different things that can make life extremely difficult for a person. Disabilities come in all sorts of forms, such as brain injuries, being visually, physically, or even psychologically impaired, just to name a few. The list goes on and on. It makes me realize just how blessed I am today that I only ended up losing the use of my legs. I think back to that day and I wonder to myself, was there something that I could have done differently? Should I have gotten out and scoped out the yard a bit better? Should I have communicated better with the people that were working there? The fact of the matter is that it's all really irrelevant right now. The damage is done, and the worst part about it is that I thought it couldn't happen to me. I remember growing up, getting my first jobs, having to do workplace safety and learning about it in school. Again, brushing it off, in co-op, brushing it off, thinking, how can you get hurt when you're supposed to be taking things seriously and at work? In my case, which is too often the case, it was a lack of attention of another person that did me in. Every day we wake up and go about our lives as if we were guaranteed tomorrow, and we all know that this is not the case. It can change in the blink of an eye. This is when you're on the job. This goes for when you're on the job, and both teenagers and adults. Summer jobs, all sorts of jobs, community jobs, everything. Make sure you know what's going on around you. If you work with machines, make sure the machines are properly tuned and properly running. No exposed wires or contraptions that are jimmy-rigged to save your boss money. Always ask questions. If you're unsure about something, ask. You might look silly at the time because everybody else might know the answer, but at the end of the day, you go home with 8 fingers, 2 thumbs, and all 10 toes. Take time to find the MSDS sheet around your workplace or your school. Find out emergency protocols and routes that you might have to take in case of a fire. Most of all, never ever assume that people around you know what is going on. In many cases, we make assumptions that come back to bite us in the butt. Mine put me in a wheelchair. Take time to ensure your environment around you is safe. It's been 2 years and 1 month since the anniversary of my accident. And I call it anniversary because it's a celebration of life every day that I open my eyes, and thank God for keeping me here. One door has closed, but so many more have opened. A lot of them I use buttons for, but it makes life a lot easier. Every day we face adversities in life, but no matter what happens, keep your head up and keep pushing. Things will get better. If my accident had never happened, I probably would not have the knowledge that I have today, and I would have missed the opportunity to be able to share my story with all of you wonderful people. So thank you for coming out and showing your support for an accessible community, and thank you to the Durham Committee for bringing awareness about disabilities and accessibility to our surrounding towns and cities. Thank you very much.